Okay. Hello and welcome to the Daily Lawyer Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Jana Krishnan. I am your host. And today is another episode in our ILA Dialogue series. So, this is an episode in collaboration with International Legal Alliance or ILA. And as many of you know, ILA is this phenomenal network of independent legal practitioners and lawyers who have come together on a best friend basis to provide really effective solutions to clients. And ILA has this amazing network of lawyers, and I feel so privileged to be given this opportunity to feature each one of them. And today I have one such amazing lawyer. Today we have with us Rashna Jehani. Hi, Rashna.
Hey.
Rashna is the associate partner at ZMC Law Practices. And she has not, I mean, she's a lawyer, of course, from Bombay, but she has not one, but two master's degrees. One, of course, she has an LLM degree from Columbia Law School. So, yay, Rashna.
And shout out.
Yes. And she has an MBA, which I thought is amazingly interesting. She did it from SP Jain, and I believe you did the global management program, right? So
That's right.
You've
from
actually,
the global management.
Yeah. So you've gone to those 3 different cities, and
yeah, actually we were taken to Dubai for a particular global immersion program. So that was like a good experience where we had to go there for a week. I will be happy to talk about it in detail.
Yeah, because I found it when I met you and you told me about that, I thought it was such a smart thing to do for a lawyer, honestly, because one of my experiences with lawyers is that we don't understand business, and that's a fact. We understand, like the law and all of that things that we're trained for, but we don't understand business. And as the world goes ahead, everything is getting interlinked, and it's extraordinarily important for lawyers to understand business today. Only then we can give effective solutions. So I think you have done the absolute best thing in getting trained also to understand business. I would love to talk to you about that. But before we get to that, I wanted to dial back and ask you your journey. How did you get here, Rashna?
Sure. Firstly, a big thank you for letting me be a part of this amazing podcast, and everything that you sort of do here. I've been a big fan.
It's my pleasure. I'm so happy. You made my day. I just told you before we started recording that you made my day. So I'm really happy.
But no, honestly, yeah. I mean, we're all like, I have been, following your podcast. I've been listening to them, and I think they're very interesting. They're very educative as well, because not every lawyer also, for that matter, would know a lot about each and every practice area. So like the immigration one, which I mentioned, was great.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Really. And I think we also have a lot of commonalities with the whole Columbia thing happening. It was so nice to know that the Columbia alumni thing connection works as well for us, I guess. And just looking forward to having a great conversation right now, and then taking it forward from there. So in terms of my journey, I would say, I'll sort of, there are different facets to this, so would be happy to just walk you through that as well. Starting with it's basically like the faith which I follow, which is actually Zoroastrianism, which I'm very fortunate to have been born into. We believe in the ideals of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds.
Yeah.
I read that these words were actually inscribed on the first Bill of Human Rights. And the first Bill of Human Rights was for me something which was symbolic to encouraging equality, freedom, your civil liberties. And this, through my studies, I realized that it was the legal profession which actually allowed or had that means to positively implement these ideals into doing something productive and constructive. So that was like one thing for me, which sort of connected the dots and made me drive me more towards the legal profession, I would say. Thereafter, I was also introduced to the tenets of Theosophy. Theosophy also believes a lot in your karma, social improvement, universal brotherhood. And that sort of also propelled me to, again, drive my learnings, not towards the end, but towards the means of achieving the end. So when I say when I say learnings, I mean, it was more about the takeaways that you get during the course of what you're learning, as opposed to, say, the final marks or the grades or, the end result. that was mainly the distinction.
That's
And
lovely, Rashna. I have
yeah.
never thought of it this way. It's lovely.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And also, it's like hailing from a very academically inclined background. So parents have always been very encouraging towards, studying, learning. And not only just sort of learning, sort of mugging, etc., but learning with a purpose. And what exactly is this purpose? The purpose is to basically question something that you feel may not be how you have perceived it to be or how you feel it should be. So that encouragement was always there for me, in the sense to ask, why is it what it is? And I feel it was through that questioning that I was able to learn more than probably, the final end of it, etc. So that was again something, on a more personal front. My mom and my maternal uncle, they both actually hold law degrees. Neither practice. Mom has been a banker. Uncle was a CFO. So they, of course, accounts, etc., finance. But it was like, whatever their take were on, say, the current state of affairs, their discussions through the family meetings, etc., that we used to have, their analysis of problems, all of that made me feel that, okay, maybe they are applying what they have learned, or what their takeaways were through the law, which is where I felt, okay, maybe I can also consider sort of studying law and then seeing how that goes. So along with that, I also did like the summer internship at Doijodi Associates, wherein, again, great experience, learned a lot. And I think that was what sealed the deal for me, in which, in terms of, I was like, okay, now this is definitely something I would want to pursue, because I was also passionate about writing. So I like to sort of craft things as per my understanding of what they are, what the facts are, things like that. And of course, through the course of the internship, I did get to assist a little bit on the drafting front. So that's where I realized that, if sort of abstractly what I like to do, my passion is this, and I like to write, why not club all of this together and, in summation, end up taking up something which actually lets you pursue what you like to do. So that's where I decided to become a lawyer.
But that's a
Yeah.
very nice way. Like we've had, I mean, since you've heard the podcast, we've had this range of answers to this question. With the majority being that I became a lawyer by the process of elimination, right? You are among the few people who have actually, you have a very clear,
Yeah.
in a sense, yours was also a process of elimination, in the sense that you figured out what you're good at or what you're not, or what you don't want to do and all of that. But it was really very well thought out, and I love the way you articulated it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, but yeah, genuinely, it was sort of in a way a chronology also, which happened. Sort of the ideation was where I mentioned it was about the faith and the realization of the ideals, and then seeking that into what I actually read. Then, even the family, etc. So it was, I guess, a summation of all, which made me pursue this.
And how did you land up as a partner or as an associate partner today, at this law
Sure.
firm, which has been
Yeah.
around for a while now in different forms, but it has been around for a while?
Absolutely, absolutely. Right. So, the journey, Jana, has been very fulfilling, I would say. I am very grateful actually for the fact that I again got to learn a lot in this journey. And the learnings have been mainly with relation to the variedness of the work, I would say. So, during this journey, I've had a chance to work on multiple different kinds of matters. So this would be like starting with your mergers, acquisitions, private equity transactions, project finance deals, lending transactions, including representing like a global manufacturer in an arbitration matter, which of course you have the expertise in. And I would say even the representation has been for different kinds of stakeholders. So there was at one point a fund, there was an investor, on the other hand, say there was a company, on the other hand, say there were lenders or a consortium of lenders who we've represented. So then accordingly, learning, understanding what their interests are and representing those has also been very sort of fascinating and a learning for me. And during the course of these representations also, what has happened is I have been very fortunate to learn these different aspects or different kinds of laws, because you get to learn company law, you get to learn contract law, you have your banking laws, different finance laws. So I feel all of this has in turn helped me a lot to shape me as a lawyer, not just who knows a specific kind of law, but who's able to actually understand what the needs and wants are of these different stakeholders, and to be able to contribute then, hopefully effectively, I would say.
Oh, I'm sure. And yeah, I have met you a couple of times, so I think with some amount of confidence say that may be true. But you have alluded to this in your answer, but I just wanted to clarify for the general public. For someone who knows nothing about what you do, how would you explain what is it that you do to somebody like this?
Sure. Okay. So let me start. Corporate lawyer, we basically advise companies in relation to commercial laws on the legal front. So this would be, again, in respect of matters which are in your private M&A space, private equity, joint ventures, anything to do with commercial partnerships, corporate reorganizations of a company. My scope of work has, like I mentioned, seen me working on, say, a private equity matter wherein an investor who's a fund wants to put in X amount of money in a company, or say there are two companies who want to enter into a joint venture, or say there is an infrastructure project which another special purpose vehicle or a company which has been set up specifically to undertake that project wants to undertake. So we represent that company. Say there's another company which wants to take on loan, or there is a financing transaction. So we've represented those companies as well as the financial institutions in relation to those transactions as well. We also now, with the whole advent of digitization, and as we're seeing that the startup boom is there, we work hand in hand with startups and small and medium enterprises as well throughout their life cycle. So when we say life cycle, what we mean is we start with advising them in relation to their formation, their structuring, what will be the best kind of entity that they should be incorporating for themselves. Also, thereafter, we then help them incorporate the same. We then move on to advising them on the structuring of their deal, whether debt is the best thing, whether it's equity, what is the best way of getting the funding for themselves. Then once that is sort of decided, we help them finalize or document that particular understanding. That could be in the form of your different kinds of transaction documents, your share purchase, your share subscription, your shareholders. If it's debt, then the equivalent of those. And we also then help them in terms of complying with the regulatory requirements. That could be on your labor front, that could be as related to your environment, your intellectual property, etc. So yeah, on the whole, this is what
a very comprehensive answer. I just want to clarify a few things for people who may not understand. When you say that you represent, companies, corporates in for the bigger corporates for like infrastructure projects and things like that, what you do their documentation for them. I'm presuming it means like, you do their documentation, you advise them on strategy, and essentially you advise them on their risks and figure out ways to create a structure so their risk is minimized.
Absolutely. So risk is the fundamental thing that we try to mitigate to the extent possible. And how is it that if at all there were a risk situation, or if at all there were a consequence of that, how is it that the liability of that would be addressed or faced, is also something that we try and capture through, of course, our very well-known indemnity clauses that we all day in, day out work towards.
So the reason why I was only clarifying is because I was given this feedback that, when we speak speak lawyer lingo, and we don't really think of the non-lawyers. They're like, after some time you're just like talking like as if you're in a dinner meeting, and you realize that there are other people listening.
Absolutely. No, happy to clarify more things also needed.
I think sometimes we don't even realize that we're using, because it sounds like English, to us. It doesn't sound like we're using some different terms.
It's not. Yeah, absolutely.
So now, because the series is called ILA Dialogues, I just wanted to check. I know the ILA. I know about the ILA. You know about the ILA, but I want to know, how did you get associated with ILA? What do you think of ILA? How has this collaboration been? What do you, how do you handle it rather?
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I think I rather know for that matter that I've been very fortunate to have been introduced to ILA through my working partner, Mr. Merzi Chinoy. I'm very grateful to him for this particular introduction that he made for me, that he did for me. He in fact actually put me with one of our other legal stalwarts, Mr. Jamshid Mistry, of course, who's the pioneer of ILA, and he's ever willing to help you, support you in whichever capacity possible. So I'm very thankful to him also for this. And I feel ILA at this point is one of the broadest and also quality wise a very good platform for lawyers to collaborate. And here we're talking about professionals across different diverse practice areas. So for all of them, or for all of us rather, to be able to come together and collaborate on matters which are at times, of course, cross-border transactions, when we're talking about different jurisdictions. But even when we're sort of talking about the same jurisdiction on a domestic level, there could be areas of law which are very niche. So we're talking about tax, we're talking about intellectual property, we're talking about, say, a commercial or a contract related matter. So that is where I feel that the expertise of all of us to be able to come together and deliver the mandate in the most productive way uh, works, and that's where I think ILA is doing a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we grew up, I think all of us, you and me, I mean, we are part of the same generation. We grew up in the age of competition. I think, it was always a rat race, who comes first, whose name comes on the board and all of that. But I think the next 30 years is truly the age of collaboration. And I'm so happy that there are platforms like the ILA and others as well, who are all doing very good work, but getting everyone together with a solution oriented mindset, so that
Absolutely.
people or your clients or litigants or whoever, they get an answer.
No,
to,
that's completely
yeah.
true. I couldn't agree more, because even from, I would say, the cost point of view, now since I've done the MBA and I understand the cost a little, the overheads for that matter actually reduce, because now you are sort of doing what you do the best in terms of your expertise, and at the same time collaborating with somebody who has an expertise in their area of practice, and giving out the product which would ideally be of the same level if you were to do the entire work yourself, because at the end of the day you're collaborating with somebody who's good at it as well, without having to maybe pay that much more to actually do it on a day in and day out basis. So I think this is a
Yeah,
great
that's
platform.
because you mentioned the MBA. It's like a really good segue into the next question that I have, which is about LLM. Because there have been people who've been very confused, especially nowadays. When we went to do our LLMs, it was much easier, I think. Easier in the sense that at least there was some hope that we'll get a job there. I'm not entirely sure that that situation is like that now.
Absolutely.
Or whether one needs to do an MBA, a master's, whether it's an MBA or an LLM. So can you talk a little bit to young students or young graduates about your LLM stroke MBA experience, and what do you think, in which situations do you think somebody needs to do an LLM, given the fact that now it's like double the cost of what we paid when we went to do, because of the dollar price and everything.
Sure. I think, this question is very important, I think, to be addressed, because like you mentioned, even I wasn't aware of too many lawyers having done MBA. For me, it was more about the learning. Even after completing my master's at Columbia, I still felt that, during the course of the work, etc., that I was doing, I would have ideally liked to understand the commercials a bit better, which of course as a lawyer you will not know, because this is not something that they teach you at law schools. So that's where I sort of decided to at least understand what is it that the MBA could offer me, and then proceed in terms of pursuing it. Thankfully, when I actually approached the SP Gen, they were very welcoming. They accepted, they appreciated the fact that I come from a background which is probably a little not so conventional, because they usually have people from the finance background, marketing, operations. They don't have somebody from the legal, background as such who approach them. So even when I did have a word with them before I decided to pursue law, to just understand how it would help me, they said it would be a great learning for you. And of course, it was very nice of them to actually offer me a scholarship. So I ended up, doing this with SPGen on a diversity scholarship, because they said that this was something new for them as well, since they didn't have so many lawyers, and they said I would add that diversity, thank you, to them, to their cohort. Which was actually very true. So I can actually even emphasize a little on the whole diversity aspect. When I was at Columbia, again, the master's there was truly transformative. It made me, it rounded me, I would say, as a corporate lawyer, because again, the lessons that you learn in terms of the laws are brilliant. The way they sort of impart that knowledge is great. Variety in any form is good. So the diversity out there was more on the level of multi-jurisdictional. So I would say there were students across like 6 continents, 7 continents who were there, who were pursuing the masters. So the learnings were definitely beyond the classrooms. On the other hand, SPGen, the diversity was of a different kind, I would say. So when I say different kind, on the first day, the students were actually asked to introduce themselves. And as far as my memory goes, I don't remember even 2 students saying that they belong to the same, kind of a background, in the sense that finance, was like the broader picture, but the scope of work that each of them undertook was something completely different. And that's where I realized that this was actually a conscious decision on the part of the management to allow students who come from different backgrounds to come together and learn this particular course, so that then they can take the learnings and go back to their respective professions. So I think the diversity aspect is something which has taught me a lot at both of these places, in terms of learnings, in terms of the adaptability to the different kinds of situations that you're put into, and it helps you grow immensely, definitely. So I would honestly suggest, people who are considering an MBA, lawyers especially, they should certainly do it, because come what may, the learnings will certainly happen if that is something that they're looking to achieve.
Yeah. But tell me, Rashna, for people now, for young students now, would that they do an LLM, or in what, I'll put it this way, in what situations or to whom would you recommend that you have to do this? The masters, whether it's masters in law or masters business administration, it doesn't matter. But
no, I think sure. So I think, like we discussed even earlier, we're right now in this, in the stage of there being globalization. The economy is being liberalized amazingly, immensely. India is right now being looked at a very good investment hub. It's looking at as very favorable, because the regulators are also, as we know, helping a lot in terms of making it easy for businesses to come in to invest. So right now we are at a stage where, as lawyers, I would say, we are not just donning the hat of a legal professional, but we have to look at things more holistically, more on a macro level, wherein we should also be able to in some way help clients achieve their business goals, not just by addressing the legal concerns, but trying to see how we can fit into the legal aspect with their commercial goals and aims. And that, I think, can be achieved only if they actually, and only if we end up having that kind of commercial awareness ourselves. And for us to have that commercial awareness, it would be important that, we undertake these kind of continuous knowledge management sessions, learnings, do an MBA, learn ourselves, equip ourselves with the knowledge, so that on a going forward basis, we are able to identify what the, say, short-term goals are, long-term goals are of a client. Because, say, for instance, a startup will sometimes just come to you with a business idea or a proposal, but the long-term effect or the implementing ability of that is something you will have to help the client to figure. And for you to be able to contribute to that, you yourself need to be equipped with that kind of legal knowledge, and then to assess what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, competition is of that particular client. And then, of course, propose a balanced approach again, because sometimes what also happens is, legally you may be allowed to do something, but if you know, or if you're aware of the client's limitations, you may not always be able to suggest that or advise that to the client. So then that kind of a balance is something you will be able to achieve if you actually end up doing, a good, learned, informed course, I would say.
Yeah.
I can
But
agree.
this point that you said is so relevant, Rashna, because I was a legal counsel and I know how frustrated I used to get. I also went from a very traditional way of practicing into the legal counsel role, because I was in the solicitor and all of that. And then you had to do a lot of unlearning. But then
True.
as you grow in your role, you are dealing with external lawyers and you're getting frustrated because they're not understanding business. So they're giving you solutions and you're telling them, my management will not accept this. I cannot take this to my management because it's not practical for me. They don't understand it. So what you told me very relevant and also very rare. And I'm glad that you brought it up in this form. And of course, I see how formal education can sort of aid really.
Absolutely.
And also because you meet so many people, right? You meet entrepreneurs, you meet business owners, you know how they are thinking.
Sure.
And we traditionally we don't really socialize with business owners.
No.
We don't socialize with them. We socialize with our law school friends, yeah, school friends or whatever.
Correct.
So
No, I think this makes a lot of sense. Like from a practical point of view, like you said, you've been, I think, in the shoes of a lawyer as well as, the corporate side as a litigant, which is in fact even more, more lawyerish, I would say. So exactly, that was the point I was trying to drive here, that being able to strike that balance between a legal person and a business person is what is important, because distilling the business issue is what will help you add value to what the client wants out of you. And that, I think, you can do a little more effectively if you are a lawyer who has a little bit more of a commercial background or an understanding of business.
Yeah. Good. I mean, like, very comprehensive answer. Okay, I think I have one last question to round up this section, but then there's one more section which is my favorite, because you have seen you've seen like a breadth of clients, like a wide variety of work. What would you say are maybe 3 or 4 mistakes that you see people make, non-lawyers, which just with a little bit of information, or if they had come to or sought legal help or professional help rather at a more primary stage, they would not have had maybe those losses, those problems.
Sure. So like we know, it's like as the maxim goes, ignorance of law excuses no man. So we won't be able to take that as a defense ever, that hame pata nahi tha. So I think going forward from that particular liner itself, I feel as far as possible on a macro level, not just say your clients, any common man, if he's just able to keep himself aware of what the simple rules are, what the rights are, I think that will save us a lot of time, effort, and like you mentioned, like there would be less of heartbreaks, so to say. So it's like, I think now a lot of information is available online. We have a lot of videos. We have a lot of these updates which keep coming in simple language as well. So as far as, like, for instance, I remember reading, in fact, on your page itself, a little bit about wills, a little bit about probate, and that was very informative. And that was sort of, it conveyed something in such simple language. So it's just about sort of keeping yourself, I think, updated with these small legal rights that the constitution, that the statutes have actually conferred upon you. Also, maybe on a going forward level, when we talk about clients, etc., of course, there are times where I'm not sure if it's out of laziness or if it's just out of sab theek hai kind of an attitude. They sometimes just end up actually signing the dotted line without really reading or paying that much of attention or exercising that detail, like diligence rather, to that particular draft or document that they're entering into, which is where then on a going forward basis, the trouble starts, or the issues happen to crop in, wherein if at that point of time itself they would have been seen or addressed, definitely the consequences could have been reduced or mitigated, I would say. So awareness is I think the takeaway here. Keeping yourself abreast, keeping yourself well informed, being diligent, having that attention to detail at the time of you entering into something, at that point of time itself, should be I think taken care of.
And also awareness is important because, we, especially as Indians, we believe, like you rightly said, सब कुछ ठीक है, मेरे साथ नहीं होगा. We have these attitudes which have no basis at all, because it can happen to me, it can, and then, once the loss happens, then it's uh, somebody told me the other day, the process is the punishment, unfortunately, in the way our judicial system is right now, because of the delays and the bureaucratic processes. Just getting to what you want after the problem has arisen is the punishment. So why do it? So before that,
exactly. And especially, like you rightly said, if it can be done beforehand, then it's like prevention is better than cure.
Absolutely.
So in this case, it just can't be any better.
Yeah. And I'm
so
shocked.
Accessible.
Yeah, actually, this is the common theme that everybody who's come on the podcast, when I ask this question, all of them say, I wish they come to lawyers at a more primary stage. I wish. It's like the most common answer, because then you realize actually the public does not realize that you have to come to us at a more primary. I don't think they do it purposely. I just think that we've been painted like these chores in media. In Bollywood movies, all the bad people are lawyers. Yeah,
absolutely. And in fact, it's like because of that little primitive mindset that a lawyer has to be approached only after the problem has occurred, needs to have a little bit of a rejig, because as, say, corporate lawyers, we come into play right at the nascent stage. So right at the stage of you even deciding to, say, marry somebody, in the sense on a corporate level, we come into play for drafting that document. But many a times that realization doesn't happen. They end up, say, trusting or in good faith or however else, just loosely drafting a document, entering into it, and then without realizing what the rights are or what the consequences will be, and not thinking it through at that level. So then that sort of boomerangs into something unfortunate at a later point of time, where, of course, then litigators have to step in. But again, that is something which definitely can be avoided, like we discussed.
Yeah. So I told you this was the last question, but I have one more question for you. Because you mentioned, because we discussed a little bit about our legal system.
Sure.
And we both, I'm sure, can agree that a lot of improvements we can have a lot of improvements to the legal system. What would you say, how can us, at the stage that we are in, how do you think we can positively contribute to the legal system today?
Absolutely. No, I agree. There is a lot that we can change. There are, in fact, many research papers also written at, by professors at the university levels, who are right now, say, pitching to the BCI also, in order to tell them that there is a requirement of, certain changes that need to be made at the education level as well. But of course, when we talk about the system, the entire legal system level, we discussed that we're living in an era of globalization, there's liberalization. Our roles are no longer just restricted to being sort of strictly lawyers. The boundaries are blurring. So we have to now take up the whole, aspect of donning multiple hats by collaborating with various stakeholders. And what I feel is we can start off, this at right at the basic level, the fundamental level, which would be at the stage of imparting interdisciplinary courses or education, which basically, because law at the end of the day is a science which comprises not just of your principles, not just of your policy procedures, but it also it's also about understanding what the practical aspect of the law is. So when we're talking about both of these, I think it's important for lawyers to step in as legal professionals. Of course, we can take up roles as faculty members, just conducting knowledge-based sessions, etc., which will actually help us, require us to impart that knowledge, which will be a function of both, like the principles, the policies, which we already know of, as well as how we have practically been able to sort of implement this and maneuver around the practical issues for the students to be able to understand what law is in a better way, and to take that forward then. So that would be, I think, at the fundamental level, the education. The next would be at the policy level, I would say. So, of course, again, having commercial awareness, having an idea about how the laws are changing at a macro level, global level as well, would help us in collaborating with, say, legislators. We could also end up having policy papers drafted. We could end up lobbying to them in order to, again, uh, help them also understand what is it that the ground reality is, or how is it that we are also perceiving what the draft legislations are, maybe play a role in that sense. And again, the last would be, I would say, for the clients, we would be also acting as business advisors, because like I said, the distilling of the business issue is what will add value to them. So to be able to appreciate what the short-term goals are of the client, what the long-term goals are of the client, we will end up enabling them to undertake what their projects are in that balanced way, wherein we're telling them that yes, the law allows you to do this, but keeping in mind what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your opportunities are, you could probably take it up in this kind of a manner, wherein the whole structuring, the formation, and thereafter, of course, the documentation would come into play.
Yeah, I can see all your MBA knowledge with your SWOT analysis.
Absolutely.
Opportunities, threats, competition. That's all of the MBA.
You got it. You got it there. You got it there. But yeah, I mean, to the extent possible, I do try and incorporate it as well.
Yeah.
So that works.
No, but that's true, right? Because people who are the clients, who are mostly the corporates or business owners, they understand it this way because they think of it this way, right? This is the way they analyze every other aspect of their business with this SWOT mechanism. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so we've sort of wrapped up the portion of our podcast. The last segment is my favorite. I ask because I just love listening to the answers. I feel like I always take away something very nice from this segment. So it's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I ask you 5 of something, 4 of something, like that. So 5 productivity tips that you'd like to give.
Right. I think the first would be stay healthy, eat well, eat healthy, sleep sleep for the quality. Time matters rather than the quantity. Exercise, meditate a little. So all of that actually helps. I do it. Try to do it as much as possible.
But I agree with you. It does. I recently started meditation and I'm quite impressed at.
Absolutely. Even I've just started it. I'm not a very
I'm also like an infant, meditation infant.
Absolutely. But it helped. It helped.
Yeah, very. So, and I have a coach and all who does, like, it's basically guided. So meditation, and it's really useful. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, please, no worries. Then, of course, the second thing is like we were discussing again, keep yourself informed, keep yourself updated with everything that's happening around you as much as possible. We have a plethora of sources, now that we can just look up, go to, read, understand. So that will help definitely. In terms of challenges, don't procrastinate. Everything may not always be as easy, etc., but take it heads on and do it. It will be done for sure. Again, been there, done that to the extent possible. At the same time, I would say make a to-do list. Maybe this is something I should have said first, but again, that's fine. I think make a to-do list, because certain times, you get overwhelmed just thinking about it in your head that, okay, there are these things that I have to do, without actually enlisting them. So the enlisting will, I think, give a bit more clarity of thought with regards to what it is that you have to do, and at the same time then give you an estimate of the time that you will take, so that you can accordingly prioritize what you need to do and then accordingly take it up. So that is something. Focus on one thing at a time. That's it. Don't, again, like I said, don't clog your brain with, everything that you have to do, because ultimately then that won't be done anyway in real time. So you have to do one thing at a time. So
4 books that you recommend.
4 books now. Okay. So one would be, I would say, The Secret. Secret's a very nice book Ron does. It just, I think, gives you that learning of, having that unflinching faith in the universe, to believe that whatever is happening for the best. That ability to see that it's happening for the best may not be there within us at this point of time when it is happening, but that's where I think that unflinching faith comes into play, wherein you believe that, okay, you're not able to see it right now, but it is for the best. So I think that book explains that very well. So that is something which I really found very helpful. Lean In is another book by Sheryl Sandberg. Again, amazing. It helps you understand how, as an individual, not just like maybe a man or a woman, you can play a role in sort of trying to gap this entire gender inequality which is happening, and unfortunately true at many levels in the corporate. So that is also something. The third book I would suggest is, I'm actually reading that book right now. It's Becoming by Michelle Obama. It's her memoir. May have, again, very beautiful, explains her life experiences right through her childhood, how she balanced out, her family, her work as a professional, legal professional as well. So that was something. The other one I would say is How Successful People Think. That is another one. That's by John Maxwell. So that actually lays down how you should probably structure your thinking if success is something you would like to achieve. And it talks about putting yourself out there, making thinking a discipline more than anything else. So, thinking in a particular way, having time set aside for undertaking that exercise of actually applying your mind to what you want to do. And again, then that resonated with, the ideals that I was talking about good thoughts,
I was
good words,
just
and good
thinking
deeds.
exactly that. That's
Exactly. So he also lays it down like in the same way to say that it's important for you to have good thoughts first, then you speak good or positive words, and then you implement those good thoughts, because unless and until you implement them, they're not really going to see the light of the day. And I would like to quote the veteran Eddie Rickenbacker, who was a World War flying veteran. So he also said that think things through, but then follow them through. So it's like you think something, but then you have to make sure that you try and follow it if you want to achieve success. So,
that's lovely.
Thank you.
Because we talk a lot about planning, but we don't talk enough about execution. And then you realize that a plan is just paper if it's not executed right. So yeah, that's true. Following through is more important than planning is important, yes. Swami Chinmayananda, who started the Chinmaya mission, he used to say it this way, say plan out your work and work out your plan, basically. Something similar.
100%.
I struggle with that, to be honest, even though I've heard it since I was a kid, but that's useful.
It is true.
3 tips that you'd like to give either current law students or young graduates. I think you have a little bit given through your
they would be those. They would definitely be those. 100%. I would say, try and see maybe something which I didn't mention would be in lines of challenges. So of course, as young students, as just graduates, you will face that little bit of a difficulty in terms of executing work at that point of time, because you're not really sure about what you're doing, etc. So that may happen. Things may not always work out as you've anticipated them to, but that should not be interpreted as a failure on your part. I think what's important is you accept that as a learning, and there are takeaways from it. So that would then end up making what you do next definitely better. So try and perceive, challenges as opportunities and take them on like heads on, like I mentioned, rather than sort of running away from them or looking at them as failures if they don't work out. Then I would say be diligent, because as lawyers, I think it's very important for us to have that kind of attention for detail with every single word that we use, because, one misuse and the entire, clause can go for a toss, or it can change the meaning of what we're trying to convey. Grammatical errors, these small formatting issues, they tend to make an impression at some point in, the kind of an email that you're drafting or a document that you're reviewing. So that could, again, from the impression wise, also create a bad impression, I would say, with regards to what you're delivering. So again, diligence is important, because also from a work point of view, that will help you flag out issues, because like you mentioned, risk is something which is very important to identify. So if you have that mindset of being able to filter out or identify issues, that will help you then mitigate them in the best way, address them as well. And of course, communication is something which I think is very important for students as well. Start off at that level wherein you're developing, you're sharpening your reading skills, your listening skills as well. Because I'm sure even you might have heard that oral and written is important for you to have as communication skill. But even listening is something which is equally constitutive of having a good communicative skill. So listening is also important. I think they can develop this through all of their committee work, public workshops, things like that. If you participate in, etc., that would help them sharpen it as well. So
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up the listening part because
sure.
yeah, it needs a little bit of patience and like slowing down to actually absorb what the other person is saying, and that's really important. uh, we don't talk enough about how important listening is.
That's
um,
true. That's true.
2 life lessons that you have learned so far in your life that you'd like to share with everyone.
Right. I would say one is again relative. Don't self-doubt. I did that to a very large extent, I would say, early on in my career. So it's that imposter syndrome which tends to kick in every time you even finish a draft or every time you send something out, thinking that okay, have you done your best? Have you not? Is it right? Is it wrong? So I would just say leave that aside. Don't feed it more into your system. Tell yourself that you have applied your mind, because you actually have, because it's a job that you had to do. So you've applied your mind, you have used whatever resources you had to do that particular job, and that's about it. And then if it's turned out the way it had to, great. If it's not, you always have learnings from it that you can take forward. So I think that would be one. And the second would be, again, don't ever give up. So this is also something which I have practiced throughout, which I would strongly, sincerely, I think urge everyone to do as well. The way Philip Knight, who is the founder of Nike, he had actually a conference once. I'm sure he's spoken about it at many, but he asked the audience to stand up if all of them worked out. I don't know if you know this story, but yeah, if they worked out say once a week, and majority of them stood up. Then he said, okay, now people who work out say twice a week remain standing, the rest can sit. So quite a few people sat. Then he asked a follow-up question. He said, people who work out say 3 times a week, only y'all stand. So more people sat down because the numbers kept reducing. And then he finally said, okay, now only those people stand who run or work out, come rain, come shine. So of course, then barely 2 or 3 people remain standing. So that's when he said that, it's like when y'all are the ones who are running, you will see the signboard which is below the lamppost, and Nike is the one who's going to be with you at that point of time. So it's like, yeah, the whole logo about let's just do it. It's more about the doing rather than the ends. So the focus should be more on what you do rather than what you get after you do it. So it's like you celebrate not the winning part, but the doing part. So the means have to be more focused on or celebrated rather than the end, because if it has to be, it will be. Else, it's about the effort that you put in to get there. So yeah.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode of the ILA Dialogue series. I know I did. I really enjoy speaking to Rashna. So this is just an amazing opportunity for me to just pick her brains a little bit and get to know a little bit more about her story. Keep watching this space. We will be featuring a lot more professionals who are part of the ILA network, the International Legal Alliance network, and for lots more content and legal information, please follow the Daily Lawyer podcast. We are available on all major podcasting platforms. We're also available on YouTube, Instagram. All of our links are listed below, so please keep watching, and thank you.